amazing.
That's probably enough drinks for tonight.
That's so cool.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's so cool.
That's probably enough drinks for tonight.
That's so cool.
It's okay.
Amazing.
It's okay.
That's so cool.
That's probably enough drinks for tonight.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. I'm Dave Stokes. I'm a technology evangelist for Percona, and I have Marcos Albe with me, and he's going to talk about migrating to a new server, migrating MySQL to a new server. Now, is this going to be same level OS to same level OS, or are we upgrading at the same time? Are we doing anything different from the old machine?
Well, I left that as a surprise you will give me. If you want, we can go to RDS. We could go to a different version. For example, I'm running Percona server 8028. We could go ahead and do an upgrade, for example, to 8030. So that is for that will showcase one migration, but I don't think we have an RDS machine ready. But in essence, there are two big migration paths. One is take an extra backup and use that to perform some form of in-place replacement of your database. That usually works well, within the same family. Or, for example, if you are migrating to RDS, you can certainly use extra backup as well. So that is actually in the RDS manual from Amazon. You're going to find that they describe how you can take a backup with extra backup, put it in an S3 bucket, and from there just prime an RDS setup. So that could be one way to do it. Another way is like I am running Percona server 8028 for, imagine for whatever reason, bad reason probably, I decide to move to MySQL from Oracle, and like I could take the backup from Percona server, and as long as I have not used any feature that will modify the binary format on disk, I should be able to go ahead and use the same backup on an 8030 from a community version. And the last will be if I wanted to migrate to something like, let's say, MariaDB, then in that case, what I will do is I will produce a logical backup of the database, which is a text representation of the data. So it will dump to a text file all the create tables, the create indexes, and the insert statements that are necessary to fully recreate all my tables and schema. And with that, you can actually go to very much any database as long as it supports the data types and the type of indexes. Or, for example, if you use virtual columns in MySQL, then your target database should support virtual columns. So as long as it's syntax compatible, it should be doable via logical dump. So what would you like me to show you, Senor Dave Stokes? All right.
There we go. In the past, when I've done migrations, it's usually to a much bigger machine that needs a different configuration. And I've always used something like MySQL dump or RCP, call it one system and all that. I really love extra backup because I find its functionality is amazing. What general has to do for moving stuff over? My first rule always was, first thing, get all the MySQL schema stuff working first. Make sure the logins work first. And then I did it schema by schema. Is that the easy way to do it, or is that the hard way to do it?
So, yeah, what I personally will do many times, and what I suggest to customers, is take a dump of only the schema without data. And that's very easy. You can do MySQL dump -- no data. And with that, you can actually have a very easy way to make sure your schema is compatible in the target. Because if the schema is compatible, then the data inside the schema should be compatible and should bring no issues. So certainly that will be my first step. Let me share my screen very quickly. Oops, sorry. What is my terminal? Share screen. I'm going to share this one. How do you share only a window? Oh, here it is. I'm going to share only my replica. Here it is. Share. So you see me there, right? So I have my main DB here, and I have a replica here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to access just like that. Yes. And like if I do create database DB August, what is it today? 4th, 5th, whatever, 4th. Oh, I'm about to have super read only. That's weird. Super read only equals 0. There you go. And if I do, hope everything is still working. Show databases, and it's not working. Show replica status. Okay, so I need to reset up replication. But anyway, I'm gonna take the backup. Usually, I will tell you take the backups on the replica, because there's always the risk that you have some long running transaction that is gonna, screw you up with your backups. So it's best to always, whenever you can, it's best to take backups on the replica. It's not that you cannot take backups on the source, but it's generally a good practice to do it on the replica. So I'm just going to take it here, not a problem. And again, what you will do is MySQL dump dash no data, and you want all the triggers, the events, and the routines, because you want to recreate every object in the database. That is the, and you want all databases. And actually, you don't truly want all databases. I normally do something else here. I'll show you in a minute, but the easy and most straightforward is to do this, and then you can remove manually the MySQL schema. But what I will normally do is I will do MySQL batch, no headers, execute, select add table the schema dot table name from from information schema tables were that the table schema not in, and I want to skip all the system databases. So I will do, I want sys schema. Oops, I typing today. I don't want MySQL schema. I don't want performance schema, and I don't want information schema. And so you get a quick list of all your tables. And so with this, you can do MySQL dump dash no data, routines, events, triggers, databases. Databases is like this. No, just if you put more than one, it's going to take like this. One too many dashes. What? Let's do it like this. And there you go. You have your dump, and the dump only has our schema, doesn't have any data. So basically with this, you can go to a separate instance. Let's do something here. What I'm going to do is rpm-qa Percona. Parts to yum remove. So I'm just going to remove my old Percona installation, and I'm going to do yum search MariaDB, because I got crazy today, and I'm just going to run MariaDB. Waiting for PID. Okay, there you go. Yum install MariaDB server. There you go. Common connector. Do I get a client here? I don't see the client. I will find out in a minute. So which MySQL? Do I get a client or not? Yes, I do. So now I got system control start MySQL. Is it MariaDB now? Yeah, look, they renamed the journal. Let's see what you don't like. That's from. Is that from now? Enforce. Permissive. Why would SL Linux be doing nothing with it? Yes. No, that's my MySQL. Okay. So what you don't like? So you can see this is the real thing, right? We don't have anything. Why is SE Linux doing nothing if I did set enforce 0? Enforce permissive? That's strange. It's weird. I would not expect this to actually be fiddling with my to rewrite. So I guess I can go ahead and fix it like he suggests. SE Linux always gives me a hard time. Starting main process, exit status, failure, exit code. All right, guess we're gonna learn how to run MariaDB with SE Linux, right? So you know what? Just give me a minute so I can fix this SE Linux mess. Exit code, MySQL prepare main process. You know what? I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna let's pretend that was never there. Then let's reinstall. So server. Control start MariaDB. Okay, so there you go. Now, hostname dash I and authorized keys. Yeah, that's great. And do I have the same here? Cat sh recipes. So I could do secure copy dump to hostname to Rocky. There you go. So I got my dump there, and I now can MySQL. Okay, move to just right. There you go. MySQL. Okay. Oh, I got bar log. To root. There you go. So show databases. So I have nothing here, and I'm just going to import SQL. Okay, there you go. Because when you do dump, you probably want to do skip GTAD purge. I can't MySQL dump. I think it's skip GTAD purge because it's not compatible. Set GTAD purge 0 then. There you go. And 0 off. Oops. Okay, commented. Works for me. And let's copy the secure skill. There you go. So there you go. Something like declaration. All right. So this is the kind of things in the migrations that you solve with this exercise precisely, right? Like you get the incompatible bits. I never remember the MariaDB one off the top of my head. I'm not gonna lie to you. So how do we solve the collation? With MySQL dump, we can do quiet. Let me transit. Skip set transit. That is it. And there are actually more compatibility settings with MySQL dump. So again, depending to where you are migrating, you might need to oops. Okay, database. Okay. Huh. How do you do that? Let me think for a second. Well, there's always a solution. We just have to look for it. No defaults. I assume there is a solution. Like I am pretty sure. Volumes, comments. Right. Use skip comments. That's one. Compact. Suppose. Yeah, skip create options. That is it. No, still insists on using my collation here. Huh. And here, all right. Figures, tables. Now I wonder if there is a way to actually move that. Must be. I'm just. Let's place. Oh, I wonder. No, now I wonder, is there an option to do that? Huh. That's weird. That I assume the skip charts that will do it. Look for local tables. And this is what my day looks like many times. I look for solutions to unexpected questions. Ignore. Yes. Delete. Okay, I can try with a different character set. Compress. And there is this compatible option, which might be what we need to do in the end. In that address. Let's set the default character set. Default character set. That's it. You really want to add the character set. Wow, it really got me on this one. It's gonna take me a minute. I'll find out. Should create. I might need to file a bug because I should have a way to extract the data without MySQL only stuff, because that's how you migrate to other databases. Like imagine I wanted to migrate to Postgres, like the character sets and the collation names will never be the same. And this thing should allow you to just dump without those. Net buffer length, max load packet. There's really no option to remove those. That's weird. Huh. There is no way. That's funny. Okay, so what I will do in this case is I will set the heck out of it if needed. I'm just going to try one more time with compatible ANSI. Let's try compatible mode ANSI. Still the same thing. At least it doesn't add it to, yeah. So it only does it on the create table. And look, if you look other databases, like if I was migrating to Postgres, it will not give me trouble. because these type of comments in MySQL are only executed conditionally if your version, for example, is greater than 4.1. And then in MySQL, things will get executed. In Postgres, they won't. Now the problem is I'm trying to migrate to MariaDB. So MariaDB understands this type of conditional comments, and it will execute them all the same. It's just that, silly enough, it doesn't support this character set, dreadful character set. So what I'm just going to do is the most ugly thing you can imagine, which is this. I'm just going to go here, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do set -e. I want to replace that with UTF-8 MB4 CI. General. I guess that will work. SG. And I'll do it in temp. That, okay, looks good. So I'm gonna do MySQL-u root, and you can create yourself a file like this. There you go. Oh, it doesn't like it. Okay, I'll do it. So there you go. I told you that many times you will have generate like incompatible stuff, like literally incompatible stuff. So at this point, you will have to go back to the design board with your developers and, find what you want to do, because MariaDB is not compatible with virtual columns. That like doesn't support this syntax for virtual columns. Let's see what this is.
Now, are the implementations of JSON between MariaDB and MySQL compatible at some level?
You got me on that one. I assume mostly yes, because those functions were introduced, I think 5.6, and MariaDB was still, quite close in terms of source code. But I truly will test it. Like anything you ask me about MariaDB at this point in life, I will test it, because I no longer trust it's compatible in most ways. So yeah,
MySQL has a JSON data type, and Maria kind of emulates it in a blob. And the MySQL basically sits on top of a blob, but they've done some other tricks to it.
Yeah, I know. You can do like in place replacement of a field, right? That is the major trick, which I think is great, because otherwise you're pushing this big JSON blob into the bin log every time you update something. So let me see if I can. At this point, it's a job of trying to understand how to migrate the schema, right? So what I will do as the DBA, or I will create database problem. And let's see, what do you want to make? Turning char. Always have that. Oh, returning. So he doesn't like the returning. And in all honesty, I don't even remember what returning means in this context. But I have to look up the particularities of returning if there is any. Otherwise, just oh, it's just saying chop it down to 512. You are the JSON guy. So is this guy telling me chop it down to 512 characters length? Dave has a book on JSON, so I am hoping he will be able to tell me this. So do you remember that bit, Dave? Like, do you cut out the result length with this? Returning char 512. Okay, so it's casting. It's casting it. It's IMDb rating. It creates a decimal and it generated always with JSON value, JSON column, IMDb returning char 512. So if one would want to get rid of all of it, it will be like this. And then I will find some workaround. Either I will use left 512 if it's trimming to 512 characters, or I will cast as char and then trim to 512. So you can work around by simply adding something here like left and so JSON, and I need like here. So what I did is I added this to the definition of this virtual column. So in an attempt to replace this, right? But again, this is the type of things you find in migrations, right? Like the difficulties come with these small details. The big things usually work okay. The small details are the pain. Character sets, definition of functionality that came into rather recent versions of the database, stuff like that. So that's it. Now I can create my database. So if I had this issue in real life, I will finally, opt to prepare this table on the side and just edit it manually, or again, use set like I did before, or use some form of automated addition to replace this single line and make it compatible with the target database. So that will be my approach. In this case, just to simplify things, what I'm gonna do is I am going to set the hell out of it again. So I did set dash e s g, and I want to look for returning char 12. There you go. So if you find that, just replace it with nothing on temp MariaDB. Yes, and I want, what's the name of the column? Is overview. And there you go. Now it looks the same as the other ones. So I will go ahead with that. I'm just going to save that into temp MariaDB 2.sql. Another option you have is, and which might be preferred by many, is create an intermediate MySQL instance, like a temporary dummy MySQL instance. Just bring it up, load the schema into that instance, and do any alters you want. Like you could alter the collation with one compatible with MariaDB. You could alter this column and make it compatible with MariaDB. So you could actually do all the alters you want to the schema then dump the schema again, and finally import to MariaDB. But the way to find what things don't work with MariaDB is what we're doing now, which looks silly, but I don't know of any better way unless you have some infinite memory to remember every detail that might be incompatible, which it's not the kind of things I do, because I know memorizing things in databases is not a good idea.
Definitely memorizing is not my strong forte. Are there any tools that let you compare character sets between the two implementations that you know of? Because I know UTF-8 used to be kind of open discussion, and then Oracle came out with the UTF-8 MB4, which is the Unicode 9 standard.
What you can always do is show character set or char sets. Like I never remember help show, and it's show char set, show collation character set. There you go. So you can do show character set, and you can find out what you have, and you can do the same for collations, show collations. So what was that? Show collation. Okay, just one. So you can tell beforehand what you have and what you don't, and you can diff with your like extract. If I wanted to do something like, I would do it like this. Grep-o collation. That I think.
I mean, 20 years ago, a lot of us were running the Latin 1 character set with the Swedish case-insensitive, accent-sensitive collation, or whatever the equivalent was back then. And now with all these other collations in character sets, it's a lot more complex.
Let me just very quickly, why don't I have collation? Sorry again. Collate. All right, collate. There you go. So I have that, and I will do awk into, then I will do sort unique, and then I will do while read collation to done. I will do MySQL -u root -e show collation like collation. Oops. And collation. So, the collation doesn't exist. So, and I can tell because it didn't print out anything here. I can probably use performance schema or information. I think information schema has it as well, in a way that I can actually count show tables from information schema. Collations. So select this collations. Collation name. Okay, so you can do this. Instead of show, you can do the proper thing, which is select count star from information collation word collation name equals like collations. Jesus. There you go. So or even better, if we do like this, Yes. There you go. So there is zero of those collections, meaning you will need to figure out how to do. So you can build these kind of one-liners, to help yourself find out if you have like a very large collection of tables and databases with a diversity of collections. Like if you have that, you actually have some other problem because you shouldn't have such a mix of collections and character sets because it's going to cost you in performance because when you compare strings of different collections, they have to be casted. Um, and it's going to probably give you incorrect results once in a while. It's going to give you unexpected order buys. You could have the same content in two tables with different collections. And if you order by, you might get different orders through those collections. So, ideally, you will have a single character set and a single collation through all your database. But again, that's up to you. And I was asking you before, Dave, do you know exactly what, where is that thing? What is that thing? Is here. Returning char 512 is that casting to char?
Yeah, that's they have a generated column
Yeah.
that's pulling out the data
Mhm.
and casting it to
So it's a cast, basically. It's casting to
yeah.
chart 512. Okay. So what I was telling people is normally, like when I find myself in this situation, I will go ahead and do the cast outside. So I will just use the cast function and put it here, and I will cast this whole thing. Like if this was the column, I will cast this whole thing to char 512, and that way I will get rid of the incompatible, uh, very convenient but incompatible syntax of return in char 512,
For
because
the
this is
purposes
not
of
compatible with Maria.
yeah. For the purposes of the port from MySQL to Maria, would it be worthwhile just to take the table, convert it from a generated column to a static column, and then after you get everything in place, then reconvert it?
Repeat the question, please.
Well, you have the MySQL version, which is a generated column.
Mhm.
Do an alter table, change that from being a generated column to a static column, a normal column. And then after the port and you have things working under MariaDB, change it back to a generated column and then start adding new data again.
No, what I was saying is the way to find out what is not compatible. Like you cannot go ahead. Like imagine you have, I don't know, 8,000 tables. Like we work with people that has applications, multiple applications running on the same instance, and they have perhaps 5,000, 8,000, 12,000 tables. So you cannot manually review that, right? Like it's not human. Like it's not human. Period. So the way to find out incompatibilities, or the easiest way, in my humble opinion, to find incompatibilities is to go ahead and run this exercise, right? Like go ahead, do the dump of the schema only, bring it to a MariaDB instance, and start facing the errors. Like I, got this error, and now I went find out that returning is not part of MariaDB's virtual columns, so I need to find a workaround. Okay, I learned that returning is what it's doing is casting this, so I know cast. I can go ahead and rewrite this with cast. So what I was saying is you can have an intermediate dummy MySQL instance or Percona server instance where you load the schema and you do the alters in there so that you're finally going to have a Percona version or a MySQL version of the schema that is 100% compatible with Maria, and then you redump from there. So that's one option. The other option is just edit the SQL file. That's up to you, right? Like it's a matter of preference and how you like automating. I don't mind doing sed. So, I just set the heck out of it. If you prefer to, automate through alters on the schema and then dump again, that's absolutely fine as well. Again, it's a matter of preferences at this point. Um, the important bit is, in my opinion, how do you discover the incompatibilities? And I believe easiest way is by attempting the load, taking note of the errors, and tackling them one by one. Does
Okay.
that make sense to you? You have more
Oh,
experience than I do with
yeah.
databases,
I was about to say the only way you're going to find these sort of problems is by smacking into them head on.
right? Like, I don't know any other like scientific way of doing this. All right.
And by the
Now
way,
I
if
have.
you're out there and you have an ETL tool that does this sort of thing, please let us know at Percona. We'd love to add it to the Percona toolkit.
Yeah, it has to be open source. It has to be free, um, because that's our little beautiful world. I actually like it. You believe it or not, people coming from Oracle ask me, "How do you guys bear with this? Right? Like, how do you guys don't perish with this database?" And it's like, it's because it's free. Like, we buy the time to cope with it by not paying licenses. So I'm happy. Um, Now, sorry, I have my schema. So perfect. Now I can go here. All the changes, like, I took mental note of the changes I did. Normally, I would have documented the changes, how I fixed them one by one, so other people can understand what changes happened during the migration, because later we might find weird stuff. But right now, I only changed the collation. So I changed this collation to one compatible with MariaDB, and I removed that returning statement from the virtual column. Um, those two changes should not do nothing with my data. Collation is only about sorting and comparing, and the returning was only about a cast. I fixed it in an I fixed it. I used left instead of cast. Ah, well, but the point is, I have a fix for those that doesn't require me to change nothing in the data, right? So now I can do the following. I can do with all these. I do need that one, and instead of no create. Oh, 115 triggers. Oh, and data. And with this no create info, I'm skipping all the create. So I'm just extracting the inserts. And again, we do this because we want to do it in two steps. First, we verify the schema, we make it ready, and we verify that we can have a schema in MariaDB that will be compatible with the data. Now that we are over that step, I will have this other dump with only the data. It's a big database. I forgot that. Your beloved friend Matt Yonkovit made it quite large so he could break my performance. Also, I'm using MySQL dump, but of course, there are other more modern solutions uh, that increase complexity, but you could use my dumper and my loader. You could use MySQL pump, which comes bundled with MySQL, and it supports parallel dump. And you could use the MySQL shell utilities. What's the name of the function? Okay, but let me show you. Do I have MySQL shell? Search. Um, oh, I removed the Percona repo. Okay, I'll show you here in a minute. Basically, MySQL Shell has a dump utility that allows you to dump and reload, and it also supports parallel and a bunch of other things. Um, and if you have to do a large migration, you probably want to look into one of those other solutions which allow for parallel dump and reload, just to save yourself some time. Um, let me show you. Let me try to show you the MySQL Shell one as soon as this guy finishes. Let me do this. This. What is it? Yeah. And you can do Percona release step tools LPS 80. Is it 80 like that? Yeah, of course. PS dash 80. Oh, like setup. Percona release step is 80. Yeah, go ahead and do it. Oh, that's what. Okay, now I see what I had a DNF module that I need to disable before. Okay, so if I do yum search on MySQL shell, there we go. Yum install. Yeah. Big dump. Right. And I just realized that in the rush, I did something very silly. I forgot to add two critical parameters to MySQL dump, which are, in this case, I needed this because if I want to replicate, I need either the GTAD sequence or the binlog file and position. In this case, because GTAD between MySQL and Maria are not compatible, I will need to use the binlog file position coordinates, for which you have to do -- master data. And also, if you want to take a consistent backup with MySQL dump, you have to use single transaction. Again, in the rush of the demo, I forgot those, but simply add those options: -- master data and -- single transaction. And MySQL shell -8 root. There you go. And if you do util dot, there you go, dump schemas, dump tables, export table, import table, load dump. So you always have help, and I love this about MySQL shell, which is help. You can always get help like that. which is so convenient. And again, it has a multitude of options, including parallel events, include events. Uh-huh. So basically, you do dump instance and you dump to some file, and then you give a JSON object with these options. So requirements, OCI, OS, bucket name. Oh, look, it has your favorite cloud. It has facilities for your favorite cloud. Compression, show progress. There should be one. Threads, there you go. So by default is 4. So this is going to produce parallel dump, should be faster, etc. I just can imagine doing this between MySQL and MariaDB. It's going to take you a bit of back and forth to clear out all the nuances, but it should work. Wow, this is one big, very big dump. What's up, my friend? Oh, Jesus. X. What's wrong with you? Oh, all the generated columns. I never figured that would be something like that. You know, MySQL dump does simple select a star from the tables, and it knows nothing about virtual generated columns. And I think it's dumping the heck out of them. That's why normally a dump should be smaller than your and your data set, because in your data set you have all the overhead of InnoDB, which has to build the B tree, and it has all the headers for the rows, and it has all the indexes and everything else, right? It's a heavy binary format, and so normally the dump will be smaller than the actual than the actual data set on disk. But in this case, we have a lot of virtual generated columns. Those are not stored. They're always generated on the fly. And they are now being generated on the fly and then saved to the dump, which makes me wonder, how will I have to tell you something. This is the first time I faced this situation. Like, I had 0 customers asking me how to migrate tables with virtual generated columns into a non-compatible database. So I'm a bit like perplexed, and I will have to think through this.
Something else we'd have to try is that this was a virtual generated column instead of a stored generated column. And
Exactly.
I wonder if it was stored, if it wouldn't have to do that computation on the fly, because virtuals don't actually do anything until you access the data. So the stored, the raw data is there. The virtual, it gets done on the fly.
Yeah. In this case, I think my approach to this will be 3 steps. So I would take a backup on the original with extra backup. I will bring that extra backup into an intermediate server. In the intermediate server, I will drop all the virtual columns. We'll dump the schema, load the schema and the data into MariaDB, and then recreate the virtual columns in MariaDB manually. Does that make sense to you? Like, do you see like what's the sequence? Because if we go ahead and attempt to load this dump, the dump is going to have, look, let me open a new connection there.
By the way, we had a question: is MySQL shell compatible to Maria and Percona? Maria, I'm not sure about, but definitely with the Percona.
Yeah. So MariaDB has diverting more and more and more as versions go by. And like it already has incompatible redo log format. It has incompatible GTAD. You just saw a moment ago, it has incompatible syntax bits, and it's just really diverting from MySQL, which if you ask me, it makes sense because uh, they set themselves to be a different database. They have different Galera libraries. They have different system tables. Like they use ARIA for many system tables, and MySQL uses InnoDB. And believe it or not, that actually makes a difference for many operations. Um, so that kind of things make MariaDB literally a not drop-in replacement for MySQL and vice versa. So Percona server with the defaults, like if you don't use any fancy configuration, it's a drop-in replacement for MySQL and vice versa. Like you can bring a clean data set from MySQL into Percona server, and you can bring a clean data set from Percona server into MySQL. Doing that with MariaDB, it's unlikely to work beyond 5.6. MariaDB 10 already started having noticeable incompatibilities. So no, it's not compatible.
Yeah, it's
Hope
in
that
some
answers
cases
the
it's easier to bring something from DB2 or a big Oracle database over to a total different type of database than it is to try to get these two cousins to interact the way you
exactly.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use the term cousin, but that's kind of the familiarly relationship I think we.
They are all cousins. Um, so if I do MySQL root and I do use information, uh, let me see which was the table that gave me a headache today. It was movie JSON generated. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is use information schema, select start from tables where table name equals. Oops, silly me. Select start from columns. And yeah, extra virtual generated. So again, you can use the generation expression and the extra to find out what are the virtual columns and automate the removal of those in an intermediate instance. Because again, if we look at this dump data SQL, so oops, oh come on. Second. It's taking a while because it finished.
Wow.
But it did, but it's not going to be a dump that is useful for us today. So again, just bear with me. So there you go. And you can see it actually has all the generated columns right there, right?
Now, a lot of
So
database stores do not like the JSON data type. It should be either char, varchar, integer, decimal, period. Uh, JSON has a lot of interesting uses, but this is one of the cases where you use it at your own risk.
yeah, but no, look, it actually did the right thing. So
Yeah.
it only dumped 2 columns. All right. Okay. Let's start compress it file dump data, and let's try to dump it. The data. That's gonna take another while. 81 gigs. That's
Ooh.
seriously. How did that grow so? So this tells you how effective JSON must be inside. Um, the internal representation of that JSON must be pretty different because the difference in size is wild.
Yes.
I truly, truly wonder what manipulation. Like I'm gonna take a look. One of our support labs to see what it's actually doing. Okay, let's give this one more minute. I know we are over time. I hope it's only going to take a couple more minutes. But these are the type of things you find in during migrations, right? Like incompatibilities of all types, and that need to be resolved many, many times. You can just automate tricks to cope with the differences. Um, some other times it might require uh, application changes. So whenever you're migrating, you should actually do this before deciding that the migration is something. So whenever the idea that migration is something you want to do, um, someone should go ahead and spend the time to probe and to verify how compatible the next database will be. Um, so let's see.
By the way, if you're a consultant and you're saying, "Yeah, it should only take me 5 hours to do a port from one machine to another," this is why you have to test it. Otherwise, you're going to work yourself out of your job.
Yeah. No. I will never say it's gonna take me 2 hours. Like I'm amazed I could do so much in 1 hour. I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah.
but it's a small database, right? It's like a small constraint schema. Like again, if you have 8,000 tables, like imagine the number of nuances you're gonna face. So it can take days. Like if it takes you days, don't feel bad. You're actually doing very well. Uh,
And by the way, if you're going from like MySQL 8.0.28 to Amazon Aurora, yeah, basically they're both
you're losing money.
MySQL, but there's little differences that pop up even if they're the same version.
Y-
So
Yeah, and you're losing money. No, jokes aside, we have while this goes on, I'm gonna put on my sales hat, and let me tell you, we have studies about the total cost of running Aurora versus running EC2 instances and hiring Percona managed services to do all the management for you. So you can just put the boxes, the EC2 boxes there, and give us the credentials, and we're going to do the job for you. So for you, it will feel like RDS because we're going to take the backups, monitoring, upgrades, and everything off your hands, and we're going to do it ourselves. And on top of that, if you want to do schema deployments, we can do it for you as well. So you can really take away all of the database job from out of your hands, and row by row, in throughput terms, we can deliver more throughput on the EC2 instance than we can ever see in Aurora. Sure, there are some read workloads that on a very beefy Aurora instance might do better, but we don't see that being like a constant. Um, and when performance problems happen, it's very very hard to diagnose because we don't have access to low level tools. And when stalls happen, and I've seen them many times, many times, then you will not have a way to tell what's causing the stall, because many times you cannot even access the database anymore, and B, if you can access the database, you will not be able to see the mutexes, the deadlock of semaphores that is driving the stall. So in all honesty, I don't have nothing against Aurora. It's just it seems to me like an expensive option that doesn't truly deliver for most workloads. It probably does for the workload that Amazon uh, marketing department run on them. Absolutely, yes. But like the real thing is that I don't see customers saying, "Oh yeah, I was running 10 MySQLs and now I have one or two Auroras and everything runs fine." They have the same 10 Auroras, it's just like 3x more expensive. So really save yourself for some money and run EC2 and get a good DBA. It's gonna be far cheaper. I mean, at the scale, right? Like if you have like 2 terabytes database, uh, an instance with the amount of memory and performance storage is going to be very expensive there.
Yeah. And by the way, Percona is equal to good data DBA. So if you need help, please contact us.
Managed services is great. Like they're doing a great job, and more and more, like we are now building Percona platform, and the managed services team is slowly adapting the Percona platform for their own needs, and it's gonna be a very positive experience, I believe. Like having a single place where you can access all your databases, whether they are MongoDB, Postgres, MySQL, and have them managed by the same team and monitored with the same monitoring tool. So it is a real advantage, if you ask me. Like I would like to have that if I was doing a website like I did 20 years ago. If I was doing web development or if I was doing development of any sort, I would really enjoy that kind of things.
And for those of you unaware, PMM, Percona Monitoring and Management, is a tool that lets you monitor your databases on-prem, in the cloud, wherever you have them. Now, another factor past that is Percona Platform, which is based on PMM, but it has a lot of interesting features, a lot of
advisors, security.
They'll go out there and double check everything to make sure that everything's configured right, that you're not missing a CVE, that the performance is what you expect, and that's fairly new. I think it came out in April or February.
Yep.
And
around the conference.
Yeah.
So yep.
And it is an amazing tool.
It is still a young tool, so as anything that is emergent, you should thoroughly test it. We are here also to help. Like, so if you have questions about that, you can approach us. You can approach us on the forums if you're still not a Percona customer. This is going to take a lifetime. Good Lord.
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't tried PMM, go to pmmdemo.percona.com. Our forums you can find under the community tab on the percona.com website. Ask questions there. And
Yes, sir.
should we just kind of let that keep going in perpetuity? And
Yeah, I'm just thinking what alternative I could do. I could do a smaller dump and just dump 1 or 2 tables, and with that, do the import just to show how I would complete. So again, today I did. Let me see. Simple issue root show diagnosis. Have anything here, right? So I will use. What's the name of the angry dog? He is pissed off with something.
yeah, someone's walking another dog in front of our house, and
Oh,
he
that.
wants to go out there and play, and it's like, Dad, let me out.
Oh, what you don't like? Oh, sit. There you go. Right, that's gonna do. Um, so I'm just gonna dump 1 table to showcase the rest of the procedure. So again, before I said I made a mistake, I missed some parameters here. Again, you want to do master data equals 2, and you want to do single transaction. This is gonna give us binlog coordinates, so we can set up a replication from the new instance, and this is gonna guarantee consistency through MVCC. So we know that whatever we have in the dump is going to be fully consistent with the positions we have on the binlog positions we have. Dump data small. And I want to do just one databases. Bases. Tables. B JSON test, and I want to do normalize the director. Okay, that was fast. Yes. Dump data small. And again, this has no create because we already created all this, and it's going to have just the inserts. So tar compress zip file, data small, small. Right now, I can do secure copy, data small, and I want to remind me host which I okay, Rocky at there you go. And if I do extract zip file, then data small. All right. And I should be able to do MySQL dash u root. What do you mean? Well, okay. There you go. So I know what's wrong. Let me. Okay. So I had this file which contained my password. So it was entering a password that is not valid because I reinstalled MariaDB with an empty password right now. So now I should be able to do this. And you have an error in your syntax. Well, funny. It really left that warning like that. All right. Source data instead. All right, I will use source data. Yes, sir. That's more politically correct, I admit. So I will do tail dash +2 damp data small byte MySQL dash u root. And the name of the thing is movie JSON test. Oops, what is the name? There you go. And of course, like I'm gonna do it again just to give you reasonable advice, which is don't do it like this. And said that the table we dumped was this one. Truncate. Right. So I'm gonna do it again. Always send your outputs somewhere, right? Like if you're like I'm importing one table, who cares? But if you're importing 8,000 tables, you want to keep a record of any errors that happen. The error is going to stop, but perhaps warnings are not going to stop the process. And you also want to see those warnings. And for those who are not very Linux friendly, this is like the important bit. So I just do cat. Basically, I'm just doing cat and skipping one line. So I get rid of that warning line that was at the very beginning. And I am passing that to MySQL, who is going to run those commands in the movie JSON test database. And then I am going to send all the output of this command. I'm going to send it to my home directory, to the import log. And I'm going to send all the error output into the standard output so that it will end up here. Because otherwise, you will not see the errors. So with that, I can, that is the proper way to import stuff. Like always, this silly, small bit is going to help you immensely when you're doing large projects. And if you have to contact a consultant or an external DBA, he's going to ask you for the log. He's going to tell you, okay, can you show me the log of what you've been doing? And you have to have it to give it to him, and this is the way to generate it. So whenever you are loading stuff, always do this. And then more trickery. Let me show you more trickery. -e. Okay. Let me show you more import trickery, which might be interesting to see. Movie JSON, what's the name of the table? Movies normalized directory. So when you are importing data, what you want to do is avoid a few checks that are expensive and avoid generating bin logs. So to do that, you can do the following. Root, and you can do init command equals set SQL log bin equals 0. That is going to inhibit binary log creation, which is expensive and unnecessary, because if you wanted to take this data to another server, just take the dump and load the dump. It's going to be faster than replicating. And then you want to do, you don't want to use unique checks because those were already done on the source, and you can trust this data to be unique. And the same for foreign key checks. And this in particular is going to save you from a lot of headaches. Because when you're dumping tables and loading tables, uh, they are not dumped and loaded in any particular order. And so foreign key dependencies are going to give you a nightmare. Uh, this will simply avoid that nightmare, and is also going to make the loading of the um, data much faster. So this simple init command is, a way to um, configure the session where you're loading the data for better performance and to avoid unnecessary work. And that's it.
Cool.
And I don't have much more to show. Well, at this point, you will set up replication. You will go ahead and, sorry, pip change on the. So we have our replication coordinates, right? And we can go ahead and use this to set up replication to the original instance. Let's do it. Why not? I mean, if you have time, I will go ahead and do it. Hostname -i and change replication filter. I never remember. Change replication filter. Let me very quickly. It's do table. Do table, replicate do table. That's what I want. All right, and I'm going to do my SQL dash root, and I will do this stuff. And I have some authentication string from SQL user. Ripple. Huh. I wonder what password we set for Ripple. But I can do this. Alter user Ripple at map identified by show plugins. I'm just gonna do my. I don't think MariaDB supports caching SHA-2 password. I don't remember. I'm just gonna do it. Just to make my life easier. So alter user Ripple at identified by with my SQL native password by Hola Dave 123. Right, now I have a password. After user Ripple, after password equals blah, master host, master host. Jesus, sorry for that. And okay, that works. Then I'm going to do change replication filter, replicate to table equals, and it's JSON, whatever. This is show tables in. table dot why to table. Oh, I know. It's I'm not sure I know. Change replication filter. I am pretty sure this is how you do it. Oh, he wants the quotes. No, sometimes he wants the quotes, sometimes he doesn't. Replicate. Man, change replication filter. I know this is right. I must have some silly error. I don't use filtering too much, and you shouldn't either. So, you can be sure this is not in your best interest. Filtering replicas is dangerous.
Especially in environments where you're adding tables all the time and forget to add the new ones.
Yeah. And it's just you think you have a replica, but you actually don't. And then it comes. Wow. Oh, MariaDB doesn't support it. I bet MariaDB. Let me check if MariaDB change replication filter. That doesn't even exist, right? You gotta do it with change master or something like that. Let me see. Just taking a quick look in the docs. Options. Okay, so I can do it for a channel. Okay, it's simpler. Set global replicate to table equals. Okay, it was even simpler. But this is kind of things you will face also when migrating. If you already have a setup, a script that will set up your filters, that is going to fail. Now I can do start slave. Oh, what you don't like? Error character set is all right. It's not a compiled character set, and it's not this. Wow. You will have to have an intermediate server, I guess. How you will fix this? So for whoever was asking about compatibility between MariaDB and MySQL, here's your answer. No, it is not. Wow. Error character set is not a compiled character set, and it's not a specified. Blah, blah. Can I compile in that character set? I never in my life faced this one. I will have to research to fix this one. So let me see if I can fix it very easily. Stop slave set global slave exec all equals even so that is not skipping it. Wow. Um, I could skip this statement, which is for a table um, that I'm not intended to replicate. It's just for the user. But again, I would rather, instead of skipping things, which is also not good for your health, I will figure out a proper way to do it. Like, if you want, we can do it in our next chapter, troubleshooting weird replication issues. Um, I don't think that's our next chapter, but
We'll schedule it for a future one.
yeah, we can do a future one. Like, really, I never faced this one. Like, we, in all honesty, um, like everybody in their fields, we have experience with what the customers, I mean, the problems with customers bring to us. uh, Migrations to MariaDB is not something we have faced many. um, so in all honesty, I never saw this one before, but it's probably there is probably a workaround of some sort. I just don't know it top of my head. But at this point, once replication is running, you should be able to verify you have the same data on both sides using a tool called pttable checksum. um, so with pttable checksum, you can verify that the data on both sides of replication is the same, and that will be the last step in a migration, right? Like, making sure you have equal data uh, to give you peace of mind that when you shut down the old database, everything is in the new database. And with that, I don't have much more to share today.
Well, thank you, Marcos, and thanks for the folks who watch this while we're doing it live and the folks who will watch it in the future. This is Percona, and we do these bi-weekly to talk about stuff. If you have questions, please ping me. I'm at Stoker on Twitter. I'll also read the questions that pop up on these things on YouTube. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. And with that, I'd like to thank Marcos again for showing us the way we should be doing stuff.
Yeah,
it doesn't always go the way we expect, but yeah, I've learned a lot today.
yeah, I've learned quite a bit as well. Like, we do this truly live. Like, I don't prepare nothing, and I think it's funnier that way. Like, it shows you what the real experience will look like. If I prepare everything and everything was smooth, that's not going to be like that. Like, databases are complex. They have thousands of variables and settings, and just doing this kind of migrations, it is something that is bound to face issues of some sort. So I hope you found it interesting as well, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one, everybody.
Take care, folks. Bye.